I really wanted to start this episode by saying this is the sort of piece that basically just plays itself as long as you can overcome the considerable technical challenges it presents. But the truth is there is no such piece. The real truth is that technicality, musicality are not separate. They really are two sides of the same coin. So you can't say something like, oh, I just need to be able to play this very fast, hit the right notes, and the piece will just sound good. That's not true. For our purposes, I mean, I'm just trying to help you learn the piece, play it a little bit better, practice it. Let's think of it like this. What are the musical demands of this prelude? And then what are the technical demands that support the musical ones? So with that in mind, what is the structure of the piece? It's really simple. It's a very nice little miniature. You have a waterfall section, which leads into a B section where we're gaining our breath back so that we can have another waterfall section. Let's talk about the waterfall section and the left hand in it first. We have these arpeggiated chords that to me feel like you're kind of like ripping through space-time. The technique to do this is really not a big secret. It's a rocking of the wrist that you'll notice if you're familiar, if you played other romantic repertoire stuff like Chopin's Fantaisie Impromptu, or what is this? This is the Liszt, I think it's a Constellation. Something like that. You'll notice that throughout so much romantic repertoire, we're outlining a chord, and we usually have the root on the pinky, and then the thumb goes up to the third. And the trick to this is to have a rocking wrist. Notice how the wrist moves along. It's pointing like this, and when we get here, it's pointing more like this. And that's the same thing we need over here for these chords. Unless you have a gigantic hand that can play this without any motion at all, and you can really reach it, you will need to do this rocking motion. But very careful about something. You do have, at every point of this motion, you do have very fine finger control at every step of the way, okay? When I'm playing with the pinky, when I'm playing with the third, when I'm playing with the thumb. You don't just magically get this nice ripping sound just because you moved your wrist like that. You need to develop fine finger control at every step of the way. So, as I've said so many times before, at some level, you just need to practice your skills in your arpeggios. Go very slowly, work on having fine finger control in every key. Practice this again, major, minor, every key, left hand, right hand. And you'll notice that once you develop that fine finger control, and once you add this rocking of the wrist, this becomes kind of second nature. And then you need to realize that there is another technical issue that, as I've said at the beginning, is brought about because of a musical demand. So musically, you really don't want to emphasize one of these notes too much. You don't want, for example, you want all three notes to just kind of come together as one. Almost like a chord, just a very slightly arpeggiated chord. But because we're playing with the thumb and we have this motion to the thumb, there's a tendency to make that note way too loud. Similarly, on this B minor chord, because we have two white notes here and then the third finger is higher up on a black key, at least the way my hand is built, I have a tendency to make this note ring out way too much. Finally, because the pinky is so weak and because the motion is from the pinky to the thumb, we have a tendency to not emphasize this note enough for it to be way too weak. So because you do want every note to be basically equal, you just need to be very aware of the problems that arise because of this. The weak pinky, a third finger which is way too loud because it's higher up, a thumb that we're leaning into way too much. And simply being aware of these these problems and having a good ear so that you can listen to the music and see what comes out, you can start reining in that thumb. You can start focusing more on pushing more on the pinky so that it's a little bit louder, so that you can get a nice, even sound with all three fingers. But do this only after you have that base of strong independence of fingers and this nice rocking motion. And then strong ears, be knowledgeable about the problems that arise with the pinky, the third, and the thumb, and it will fall into place. One more thing before we go to the right hand. This is the sort of piece that benefits a lot from practicing by taking out elements. So a great way to practice the left hand, especially for focusing on the pinky to make sure that it's strong, is to play without the thumb. Practice. Just like that. We'll come back to this a bit later. It's much more helpful when we put hands together, but it also helps when you're practicing the hands separately. So the right hand, this waterfall. If you forget about the pinky, the waterfall is not all that difficult. Oh, sorry, forgot the most important thing with the waterfall. Rhythm, 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 rhythm. Don't be sloppy about these 5 notes. There are 5 notes, but they're not equal, okay? You want pum-pum-pum-pum-pum-pum-pum-pum. It's a triplet followed by 16ths, okay? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, pum-pum-pum-pum-pum-pum-pum-pum-pum-pum-pum. Even at very fast speeds, you don't want it to be mushy, okay? Really work very hard to have a very clear 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1. Okay? All right, once you have that down, you'll notice that if you take out the pinky, the only challenge is this thumb switch. That you're coming over the thumb. But truthfully, especially because we have the fingers here on black notes and the thumb on the white notes, it's kind of hard to make the thumb be way too strong. This is one of the few cases where the thumb switch comes pretty naturally. But on a much more deeper level, what you need is a lot of practice with scales and arpeggios to really nail what a thumb switch feels like. But provided that you do have this basis, okay, you can do a thumb switch, you'll find that it's not too hard to have this waterfall. The difficulty arises when we add the pinky because, well, I'm not exactly sure why, but it just feels like it's kind of like a roadblock. We're interrupting this waterfall because at every 5 notes, at every block of you need to throw out the pinky. It's also why the piece sounds so cool. So what I suggest is 2 things. First of all, forget about the triplet and practice without it. Practice just this part. And I think the secret here, I don't think it's just me and my hands, I think this is true for most people, is to have a pretty high wrist. I really can't explain why, so I might just be wrong about this. But if you're finding yourself unable to do this very cleanly, play around with the wrist. I don't know, maybe you need a low wrist, but play around with it. I think with a high wrist, I really can't explain why, but it feels kind of natural. It feels like we're just going like this. Our hand with the wrist, we're just moving it like this, and our fingers just execute. It's kind of like a spider. So play around with that. But crucially, try to leave out those triplets and really focus on what it feels like to have this crossing over with the thumb and being able to place our pinky after that crossing over. If you can do that, I think adding in the triplets just becomes pretty much second nature. I could have sworn I had one more thing to say about the right hand, but I actually do not think I do. All right, that's all for the right hand. Very, very easy, right? No, it's not. But if you can break it down, try to remove elements, you'll find that you can practice in smaller chunks and then things will come together. So again, focus on the wrist and try to get this motion down, and the triplets will come in pretty naturally. Now, putting the two hands together presents yet another problem. With the hands together, we're kind of jumping around a lot, and it's hard to have your vision, like literally be able to see both hands, especially because the right hand starts up here, the left hand sometimes moves down, sometimes it moves up. And unless you can play one of the hands without looking at it so that your focus can be entirely on the other hand, it's pretty difficult. I find that I literally need to like take off my Glenn Gould pants and not play like this the way I play my Bach, and kind of sit back a little bit more and have a bigger, more holistic view of the piano so that I can actually be aware, whoops, of everything that's happening. I'm still moving my head around a little bit like this, but I don't have to go like from here to here to here to here. So I know it sounds silly, but if you find yourself unable to hit all of these jumps, try sitting back a little bit. Interestingly enough, I find that the truth is both hands are actually decently playable without looking at them. Even the left hand, you would think that the left hand with these big jumps is very difficult to play without looking at it, but I think because the pinky reaches for these notes that are the start of these black note islands, I don't know, maybe I've just played enough piano that it comes pretty naturally, but it's surprisingly not that difficult. And almost paradoxically, I found that the right hand is harder to play without looking at it. If it was without the pinky, it's okay. This is actually, you can really play without looking at it. But once you throw in this pinky, I don't know, there it came out quite well, but I found that sometimes, I don't know, it's hard to throw it back out. I really need to look at my right hand to make sure that I'm hitting the right notes. But do try to see how much you can get away without looking at one of the hands to liberate your vision so that you can focus on the one that is presenting you more difficulty. And even as you do this, try sitting back a little bit more so that you can have a more holistic view of the keyboard. Now, I talked about practicing this piece by taking out elements of it. It becomes much more crucial when you put the hands together. So I suggest practicing the hands together by taking out almost everything. Practice just this. Okay? I'm not doing anything in the Waterfall except the beginning chord, okay? And in the left hand, I've taken out the thumb. So just, this is gonna help you, whoops, get used to the jumps that you need to do. Okay? And then you can slowly start putting in more elements. With the left hand, let's put in the thumb. Let's go up. Whoop, I've lost myself. See how hard it is to jump around like that? You can start putting in this part, the thumb switch. This is, I think, the most important one, for me at least. This is the part that I practice the most. But I don't know, maybe for you, the rhythm in the Waterfall is more difficult, so you'll want to practice. But practice by taking out elements and slowly building up together. At the very least, this is going to help you figure out, like, focus on the parts that are giving you the most difficulty so that you know where you need to put in more practice time. The last thing I want to say before I finish with a minor note on the rhythm and the overall structure is the pedal. So when you're putting the hands together, I think this is where you want to start trying with the pedal. This piece actually sounds pretty good without any pedal. I don't know why. Whoop. Maybe because it just goes by so fast. Feels like you don't really need the pedal, but the pedal does add something. I really can't tell what, but only if it's very light. You really don't want to be heavily putting down the pedal. Not because the sound gets muddy, because it doesn't. We're moving along so fast, even with a bit of a little bit of muddiness, it's okay. I think the light touch of the pedal, like a little bit of a half pedal at the beginning of every chord, just adds to the resonance. It just makes the sound a little bit richer. Again, if you remember from our discussion in the Chopin C minor Prelude, that's really the point of the pedal, is the resonance and the richness. Okay, last thing before we play the piece, I want to make a note on the structure. We talked about the waterfall section and the gaining our breath section. Notice something which I can't believe evaded me for so long, but it's so obvious when you look at the page. They're in different rhythms. So the piece is written in 3, and in the B section, it truly is in 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But the waterfall section is actually in 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It's pretty clear because you're alternating in 2. You're alternating from the C sharp chord, 1, 2. And now we're going to do F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, C sharp, B sharp, F sharp, B sharp, F sharp, B sharp, F sharp. So because we're alternating in 2s, we really get the sensation that the waterfall section is not in 3, it's actually in 2. So be aware of that, of this interesting dynamic contrast between the rhythms, because you're going 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Makes for a very, very interesting miniature of a prelude. Now, I lied to you. This is not the end. I cannot believe I forgot to talk about the technical problems of the B section, probably because there aren't too many. But I want to mention 2 things. So the musical, I think the most interesting musical demand of the B section is that the right hand has a melody that's very legato. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. While the left hand has a pause. It's much more punctuated. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So technically that's not very difficult to do, but you want to be very honest about your listening and make sure that you're actually doing that. You're actually hearing a very clear legato melody with a punctuated left hand. It's much more difficult at the end, I found. Even there, I feel like I didn't really feel that punctuation, that jump in the left hand. So be very careful about that. And the other thing that is a little difficult is in the right hand, playing legato is going to require some very awkward crossing over, especially with the 5 and the 4 fingers. I don't have a good tip for that. This is one of the rare cases where I actually cheat and I use the pedal to fake a legato, which I recommend never doing. So here at the beginning, okay, here I'm cheating, where I use the pedal to make that legato. There's no one fingering that's going to work for everyone. Chopin didn't write any fingering for this piece, for very few of the preludes actually. But he did have a bunch of students, and I think there's like 3 or 4 student copies that we have access to. And I think every one of them has slightly different fingerings, because naturally every student has different demands. So just be aware of work on a fingering that works for you, so that you can really emphasize the musical demand here, which is a legato melody. And if you do need to cheat with a little bit of pedal, I think it's okay. Well, it's not okay, but whatever. Sometimes we do a little bit of cheating. Okay, now that was the true ending. Hopefully that helped. This is a gorgeous little miniature. I really love it. Let's play it.